Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Polyglot Nook. It's me, your host, and I'm so happy you're here with me today. Grab a cup of tea, or a coffee, or whatever you like. And let's just take a moment. Lately, I've been thinking a lot about the journey of learning. Not just learning a language, but that first step. That brave, scary, and sometimes overwhelming decision. To start. We often hear from the big names, you know? The famous polyglots. The language professors. The people who seem to have a gift for it. But what about the rest of us? The everyday people. Who just decide to do something extraordinary? I recently came across the story of a young woman. Let's call her Mary. Her story. Her journey to learn Norwegian. It really struck me. It's not because she's a genius, or because she's got some secret superpower. It's because her methods are just so incredibly smart and, honestly, universal. She's not a professional linguist or a teacher. She's just someone who wanted to learn a new language. And she did it brilliantly. What's so incredible about her story is how she navigated all the common mistakes, all the little pitfalls we all fall into. She managed to find strategies that just work for anyone, for any language. It's a testament to the idea that you don't need a fancy degree or a special talent to achieve something amazing. You just need the right approach and the dedication to see it through. The power of a big goal. So, let's start at the beginning. You know, when we decide to learn a language, we often say, I want to speak it. But Mary's goal was different. Right from the start. Her goal wasn't just to speak Norwegian. It was to speak Norwegian like a native. To make the language truly her own. To internalize it so deeply that it felt like a second mother tongue. That's a big goal, isn't it? And you might think that's too much pressure. But a powerful goal, especially when it's mixed with a genuine love for the language, can be an incredible motivator. It's the difference between a casual stroll and a purposeful hike up a mountain. You know it's going to be hard, but the view from the top is what keeps you going. This brings me to my friend, Mike. He decided to learn German. And his first few weeks were tough. He was just trying to learn a few words here and there. A little grammar. He was getting frustrated. Feeling like he wasn't making any progress. I asked him, "What's your goal, Mike?" And he said, "To pass a test." And I told him, "That's a good goal. But what's your real goal? What's the mountain you want to climb?" After a long talk, he realized his real goal was to be able to talk to his German-speaking grandmother on the phone, without his parents having to translate. The moment he connected his learning to that deep, personal goal, everything changed. He started to see progress. Not just in the words he learned, but in the potential for a real, meaningful conversation. The kid principle, a fresh perspective. So, how did Mary actually start? Her approach was simple. And it came from a brilliant observation. She saw how children who move to Norway eventually become fluent. And you can barely tell they're not native speakers. She realized they don't use textbooks or grammar drills. They just soak it all in. But wait, I'm an adult, you might say. I can't just become a child again. And you're right. We have adult brains. And we have to adapt the child's approach. Mary knew this. She took the core principles of how a child learns a language and made them work for her. The first principle she adopted was all about listening. Think about a baby. They spend months and months just listening. They don't understand a word, but they're creating a foundation in their brain. Mary did the same thing. Even with a zero level of understanding, she would listen to Norwegian constantly. While she was walking, cleaning her apartment, even playing simple computer games that didn't require much attention, she would have Norwegian audio playing in the background. At first, it was just noise. But over time, her brain started to pick out patterns, to recognize certain sounds and rhythms. It's like when you hear a new song on the radio. The first time, it's just a nice tune. But after hearing it 10 times, 20 times, you can hum along. Maybe even sing a few words. This constant, low-stakes exposure is a crucial first step. But, as she realized, just listening to background noise isn't enough. It's a great foundation, but you need to build on it. And this is where she applied the second part of her kid principle. Think about kids and their favorite stories. My two nieces, for example. I've read them the same few books so many times. I practically know them by heart. They love to listen to the same stories, the same songs, over and over again. This repetition is a superpower for learning. Mary used this principle for herself. She would find scenes from Norwegian movies or TV shows that she liked, break them down, and then listen to them repeatedly. Just like a child with a favorite fairy tale. She would analyze the dialogue, understand it, and then play it again and again. This allowed her to move from passive listening to active understanding. Building your word bank. Okay, so we've talked about listening and repetition. But how did Mary build her vocabulary? How did she learn new words? She started with a simple list of the most common words. She didn't try to memorize it all at once. Instead, she kept this list in her mind. And, when she was reading or listening to Norwegian, she'd actively look for those words. When she found one, she wouldn't just write down the word. She would write down the entire sentence it was in. She was building a personal dictionary. Not of isolated words, but of words in context. Every single day, she would dedicate about 10 minutes, usually right before bed, to reading these sentences out loud. This was a crucial part of her routine. And when a word was hard to pronounce, she didn't rely on complex phonetic symbols. She created her own simple system to mark the pronunciation. Maybe an extra E or a little line above a letter. Whatever made sense to her. This made her notebooks her own personal, understandable tool. She didn't need a textbook. She had her own living, breathing language journal. I remember a student of mine, a guy named Tom, who was learning Spanish. He was always frustrated with phonetics. He thought they were too complicated. I told him about Mary's method. And he tried it. He started putting little squiggles and arrows next to words he found difficult. And suddenly, the frustration was gone. His notes made sense to him. And he could review them quickly and effectively. It's all about finding a system that works for you. Not just following a rigid, universal rule. The grammar puzzle. Now, let's talk about grammar. Many of us are scared of it. We feel like we'll get lost in a forest of rules and never find our way out. Mary felt the same. She didn't think grammar was bad or useless, but she was afraid of getting bogged down in endless explanations. So, she took a different approach. Instead of starting with the rules, she started with the language itself. She would find a piece of text, a song lyric, a short story that was a little bit above her level, but genuinely interested her. Then, she would get her hands dirty. She would use two tools: Google Translate to get a basic understanding of the sentence, and a grammar reference book to figure out why the words were put together that way. In a traditional classroom, you learn the rule first. And then you do an exercise. Mary did the opposite. She found the language she liked. She dug into it. And from the text, she discovered the rules. It's a much more organic, a much more natural way to learn. It's like being a detective, uncovering the secrets of a language, instead of just being told the answer. Speaking through writing. How do you start speaking when you're not a confident speaker yet? Mary's answer was to write. She kept a journal, wrote her own stories, and used a really clever technique to improve her writing skills. She would write a story or a diary entry first, in English. Then, she'd put that English text aside and try to write the same story in Norwegian from scratch. Afterward, she'd use Google Translate to translate her original English text into Norwegian. This gave her 2 Norwegian versions, her own and the machine's. She would then compare the two. This gave her an incredible, immediate feedback loop. She could see where she made mistakes, where the natural phrasing was different, and learn directly from the contrast. I've been a huge fan of this method for years. It's a way to use a tool like Google Translate not as a crutch, but as a teacher. It's a genius way to get personalized corrections and improve your writing naturally. She said she could see her writing get better and better, and her sentences started to sound more and more like native Norwegian sentences. The reading adventure. When it came to reading, Mary had another brilliant idea. Most people, especially beginners, are told to read children's books or adapted texts. And while that's not bad advice, it can sometimes be a little boring. Mary wanted to read real literature. So, she got a full-length, native Norwegian novel. She knew she couldn't read it from beginning to end. That would have been too much. Instead, she just carried it with her everywhere. She would open it up to a random page and scan the text, looking for sentences or words she already knew. She'd find little islands of familiarity in a big ocean of unknown. She would try to translate those small parts, using her grammar book and her dictionary. She wasn't trying to control everything. She wasn't trying to understand every single word. As she put it, she wanted to get lost in the language. This approach, letting go of the need for perfect understanding, is incredibly powerful. It teaches you to be comfortable with the unknown, to find satisfaction in small victories, and to be a little bit braver every day. She also paired her reading with audiobooks. She would read and listen at the same time, using 2 senses to reinforce her understanding. But she took it one step further with movies and shows. She'd watch a scene without subtitles first. Then, she'd watch it with Norwegian subtitles to see what she missed. Then, with English subtitles to understand the full meaning. And then, she'd go back to the original Norwegian subtitles to practice and reinforce. This strategic use of subtitles is a game changer. It turns passive entertainment into a powerful learning tool. The master key to fluency. We've covered so much, but this next part is, in my opinion, the absolute key to her success. The thing that made people think she was a native speaker. Remember those stories she wrote? The ones she corrected with Google Translate? She took it a step further. She found native Norwegian speakers online who would correct her mistakes. So now she had her own thoughts, her own stories, written perfectly in Norwegian. And then, she did the most important thing of all. She memorized them. She would get her native speaker friends to record her stories, and she would learn them by heart. She practiced so much that these perfectly written paragraphs sounded like her own thoughts, flowing effortlessly from her mouth. It wasn't just memorization. It was training her mouth and her brain to produce natural, fluent speech. It was the practice of flow and rhythm, of sounding natural. This is a method I've used myself. And I can tell you, it works wonders. It builds your confidence. It builds that muscle memory of speaking a language. And it gives you a library of perfect sentences you can use in real conversations. It's like having a cheat sheet for fluency. So, what's the takeaway from Mary's amazing journey? It's that learning a language is a marathon, not a sprint. It's about consistency, not about magical tricks. It's about finding a method that works for you and then sticking with it. Mary's methods are not difficult. They don't require expensive classes or special software. They require a mindset, a willingness to listen, to repeat, to get your hands dirty with the language, and to be okay with not understanding everything all at once. It's about making the process enjoyable and personal. It's about building a language that's not just a collection of rules, but a collection of your own stories, your own thoughts, your own adventures. I hope Mary's story inspires you as much as it inspired me. Remember, the progress might not be visible every day. But if you keep going, if you keep using these simple but effective methods, the results will absolutely come. Thank you so much for listening today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to Polyglot Nook. I would love to have you with me for our next language adventure.